He was a contractor, a Democrat precinct captain, a children's entertainer known as Pogo the Clown. He threw neighborhood barbecues, shook hands with the First Lady, and was beloved in his Chicago suburb. But beneath that carefully constructed mask lived one of the most prolific serial killers in American history. This is the story of how investigators finally caught John Wayne Gacy and what they found buried beneath his house. John Wayne Gacy was born on March 17, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois. On the surface, he was the picture of the American dream. A hard-working businessman, active in his community, respected by his neighbors in the quiet suburb of Norwood Park Township. He ran a successful construction company, PDM Contractors, and was known for throwing lavish parties. But Gacy had a dark past. In 1968, he was convicted of sodomy against a teenage employee in Iowa and served 18 months in prison. After his release, he moved back to Chicago, and authorities in Iowa failed to notify Illinois of his prior conviction. It was a failure that would cost dozens of young men their lives. Gacy had another identity, one that he performed at children's hospitals and local events. Dressed in a colorful costume and face paint, he became Pogo the Clown. It was the perfect disguise, cheerful, harmless, beloved. But to those who would come to know the truth, the clown costume would become one of the most disturbing images in American crime history. Between 1972 and 1978, young men and teenage boys in the Chicago area began to vanish. Many were runaways, drifters, or young men looking for work, the kind of people whose disappearances didn't always trigger immediate investigations. Gacy would often lure victims by offering them construction jobs or cash. Once they were in his home on West Summerdale Avenue, they never left. He used a rope trick, a handcuff demonstration, to restrain his victims before assaulting and killing them. He strangled most of them, and then he buried them beneath the crawl space of his own home, in the yard. And eventually, when he ran out of room, he began dumping bodies in the Des Plaines River. For years, no one connected the disappearances to the affable contractor on Summerdale Avenue. But in December of 1978, everything changed. On December 11, 1978, 15-year-old Robert Pice disappeared after telling his mother he was going to talk to a contractor about a summer job. That contractor was John Wayne Gacy. Unlike many of Gacy's previous victims, Robert Pice had a family that immediately went to the police. His mother reported him missing that same night. Detective Lieutenant Joseph Kozenjak of the Des Plaines Police Department took the case seriously. He looked into Gacy and discovered his 1968 sodomy conviction in Iowa. This was enough for Kozenjak to begin surveillance and to apply for a search warrant of Gacy's property. Police began round-the-clock surveillance on Gacy. Meanwhile, officers searched his home and found several items connecting him to missing persons: a receipt from the pharmacy where Pice had worked, books on homosexuality and young men, and a piece of a photo the missing teenager had given to a coworker. But it was the smell, a foul, unmistakable odor rising from the crawl space, that told investigators what they feared most. On December 21, 1978, investigators dug into the crawl space beneath John Wayne Gacy's house at 8213 West Summerdale Avenue. What they found was incomprehensible. Bodies, 26 of them, buried in the crawl space, some in lime, some in various states of decomposition. Additional remains would be found in the yard, and 4 more victims had been thrown into the Des Plaines River. In total, investigators identified 33 confirmed victims, all young men and teenage boys. The discovery shocked the nation. Here was a man who had hosted Democratic fundraisers, posed for a photograph with First Lady Rosalind Carter, and been named Man of the Year by his local Jaycees chapter. And he had been committing these murders for 6 years, just beneath the surface of everyday suburban life. Gacy was arrested on December 21, 1978, the same day investigators began uncovering the bodies. Initially, he was charged with 1 count of murder. As more bodies were identified, more charges followed. His trial began on February 6, 1980. Gacy's defense team argued that he was legally insane, that a secondary personality was responsible for the killings. Prosecutors dismantled the argument methodically, presenting evidence of deliberate, organized, and calculated murders. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. On March 13, 1980, John Wayne Gacy was convicted of 33 counts of murder, the most convictions in a single American murder trial at that time. He was sentenced to death on 12 of the counts. Gacy spent 14 years on death row, filing appeal after appeal. He took up painting in prison, producing dozens of canvases, many of clowns. He maintained his innocence and gave numerous media interviews, insisting others were responsible. On May 10, 1994, John Wayne Gacy was executed by lethal injection at the Stateville Correctional Center in Illinois. The case of John Wayne Gacy transformed American law enforcement. It led to major reforms in how missing persons cases, especially involving young men, were investigated and communicated across state lines. It exposed the catastrophic failure of Gacy's 1968 conviction never being shared with Illinois authorities. Of his 33 confirmed victims, 8 were never positively identified during his lifetime. DNA technology has since helped identify additional remains. Families waited decades for answers. John Wayne Gacy is a reminder that evil does not always announce itself. It runs for local office. It throws block parties. It dresses up as a clown for sick children. The most dangerous predators are often the ones hiding in plain sight. And it was only because one determined family refused to let their son's disappearance go unnoticed that the monster on Summerdale Avenue was finally brought to justice.